Now that I have my draft completely finished, which means I have an introductory paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, and a concluding paragraph, I'm going to create the final copy. And in order to do that, I need to have, you'll notice, Class Notebook and Word are in a split screen right now. So I have my class notebook on the left, and I'm going to tap that plus sign in the bottom on the Word application, and I'm just going to tap blank document, and that's going to create a new document for me. So I have in my notebook my sample draft, and to make this as easy as possible, I'm just going to select one word, and then I'm going to drag all the way down to the bottom. That brings up my context menu. I'm going to hit copy, and then I'm going to go over to the Word document, tap in the blank space, and hit paste. Okay, so now I have my entire essay has been copied and pasted, which means I can go ahead and close out that notebook and get into a full screen with Word. Excuse me. Makes it a little bit easier for me to see the document as I'm working through it. So you'll notice that all the fonts are different, and we're going to talk about how to format that in a second. But before we do that, I want to talk about some requirements that most teachers have when you're submitting an electronic copy of an essay. First and foremost, you're going to need a header. So I'm going to tap at the very beginning, and I'm going to hit the return key twice. Okay. Now this is called a left justification, which means everything's going to be lined up on the left side of the document. And you are going to type your name, your full name. I include my middle initial because that's how, when I'm being formal, I make sure I include that. You do not need to include your middle initial. You're going to include the class name. You're going to include what period you are. So if you're period 2, 5, 6, 8, 9, or 10, you're going to include that. You're going to include your teachers' names. So you would include first name, and last name. And then lastly, you're going to have the date that you're turning it in. Okay, so, I spelled Mrs. Seville's name wrong. Shame on me. See how I just went back? Oh, actually, it auto-corrected. That's why. I was going to say, wow, I'm surprised I did that. And then the date that you are turning it in. So we'll say that this is going to be due on March 22nd, 2022. So that's a heading. I'm going to fill that in so you can figure out which one you want there. Okay, so that's considered a heading. And like I said, that is lined up on the left, which is a left justification. And you'll notice, again, that all of my fonts are different. So in order to fix that, what I'm going to do is select one word. Actually, I'm going to tap and pull up the context menu. And you'll see that select all is an option. So I'm going to select all, and then I'm going to choose a font by tapping the space right above or right below where the document name is. So there are a couple of good fonts. Studies show that Verdana, which is the font that I use for most of our documents, is the easiest to read on a screen. So I'm going to scroll down to that. Things to consider when you are choosing a font for an essay. You want, 1, readability, and 2, you don't want to choose something that doesn't match the mood or tone of your writing. So choosing like Comic Sans or marker or this, that would look very weird for an academic essay for you to use that font. So I would make sure that I'm choosing something that is more easily read. So for the purpose of this essay, I would like you to choose Verdana, and size 11, which is already the default, is there. We're going to keep it at size 11. Okay? So you'll also notice that my paragraphs do not have indentations, so I need to fix that. I'm going to tap right in front of the 4 of my first paragraph. And I'm going to hit the tab button, which is on the left side of your keyboard. And I'm going to do that for every paragraph. Just hitting that tab button. So all of my paragraphs have indentations. Okay, so that's one, the first thing I'm going to fix about that. The next thing is when you are turning into paper, you should probably use double spacing for the body of your paper. So I'm going to select one word and then drag that down again. Okay. And I am going to tap on, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you'll notice it has 3 lines and it looks like a backwards P. That's your paragraph. So paragraph formatting, it'll tell you the top 4 are how to justify, which means is it going to line up on the left, line up in the center, line up on the right, or full justification, which means they spread everything out so it looks even and I have even margins. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to focus on line spacing, which is the 6th one down. I'm going to tap that and I'm going to choose 2.0, and that's going to double space my paper for me. Okay, so now I have a double spaced paper and I am pretty much set as formatting goes. We're going to make sure, if I scroll through here, that none of these have any red underlines, and I see one word here does, so that means it doesn't recognize the spelling of that word. Canva is the name of an app. So I know that I've spelled that correctly because I typed it right off of the app name on my phone. So even though Word doesn't recognize that, I know that that's spelled correctly. Scrolling through. And obviously it has my last name underlined because it doesn't recognize that as a spelling of rice. So that is the basics of formatting your Word document. And then what you're going to do is when you hit go to save, it's going to ask you for a name. So you're going to have to name your document. As always, when we are naming documents, we do first initial, last name. I'm not going to use my first initial and last name because I know a lot of you end up typing what I type. So I want you to type your first initial, your last name, and then final copy. Okay, and I'm going to choose OneDrive to make sure it saves to my school OneDrive, and then I would tap save in the upper right hand corner. And now you'll notice in the upper left hand corner the name is changed. So now I've saved everything. We're going to come back and talk a little bit more about making sure margins and how to use other tools in Word, but this is the basics for creating your final copy.